All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the STEM Files on OMS TV. We are no longer on YouTube. Excuse me. We are no longer on Blog Talk Radio. I repeat, we are no longer on Blog Talk Radio. This is the 21st edition of the STEM Files is being on YouTube. I'm your host, Tariq Muhammad, Chief Operating Officer of Richmond Scientific. My background is in biomedical research, and I'm joined by my illustrious co-host, Jabril.
Peace and blessings, everyone. Before we go any further, not so illustrious co-host, try to be humble, keep hungry at all times. My name is Jabril Muhammad, aka Jabrilliant Engineer, Director of Engineering for Richmond Scientific, also with a background in material science and engineering. Before we go any further, again, want to make sure that we are watching, liking, and sharing. Go to www.omansci.com for our website. Also, follow us at OMANSCI_ for Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, as well as at OMS_TV for OMS TV on IG and further. With that, we want to keep it moving. We have a wonderful, wonderful show lined up for you all with an awesome, awesome guest. Make sure we listen in. If you have any questions, keep them and present them, and let's get it going.
Yes, and before we continue, for those who have questions, just go ahead and text the line 770-695-7912. Once again, that's 770-695-7912. So this is a first time for the STEM Files. We have never had a guest that has a background in oceanography or anything that has to do with marine life or anything to do with water, period. So I want to welcome Dr. Ashanti Johnson, educator, author, scientist, one powerful Black woman in STEM. Welcome to the STEM Files, Dr. Johnson.
Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. So before we begin, Jabril, can you go ahead and read Dr. Johnson's bio?
Yes. Just because I know two things were sent. Do you want me to do the shorter biography or the...
Just gotta read the whole thing.
All right. Okay.
You gotta know about the system.
All right. Dr. Ashanti Johnson, the CEO, President of S.T.E.M Human Resource Development, Inc., and CEO, Superintendent of Sirius Academy, statewide S.T.E.M, Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Mathematics Charter School System. Immediately prior to serving as CEO, Superintendent of Sirius Academy, Dr. Johnson was an Associate Professor at Environmental Science and Assistant Vice Provost at the University of Texas at Arlington, UTA, and Executive Director of the Institute for Broadening Participation, IBP. She has also been a faculty member at the University of South Florida, Georgia Institute of Technology, and Savannah State University. Dr. Ashanti Johnson is an internationally recognized expert and sought-after speaker on STEM professional development, diversity, and women in STEM topics. In her Women Exploring Oceans interview, Dr. Johnson reveals how she initially became interested in the oceans by watching Jacque Cousteau, and how that interest was strengthened after interacting with a female marine biology graduate student who spent a day with Ashanti, then a fifth grader discussing the oceans. Dr. Johnson, who received her PhD in oceanography from Texas A&M University, still cherishes the childhood memory of that summer day and has throughout her college and professional career frequently shared her interest in the oceans with children, teachers, community leaders, college students, and federal government officials. In addition to serving as an aquatic scientist and conducting research as university faculty member in Georgia, Florida, and Texas, Dr. Johnson has gained over 15 years of senior leadership experience in university, nonprofit, and K-12 organizations, including serving as the UTA Assistant Vice Provost, Faculty Recruitment and Diversity, IBP Executive Director, S.T.E.M Human Resource Development, Inc. CEO President, Minorities Striving and Pursuing Higher Degrees of Success, MS and PhDs, Professional Development and Mentoring Institute Executive Director, and the CEO Superintendent of Sirius Academy. Her honors include a U.S. Presidential Award for Excellence in Science, Mathematics, and Engineering Mentoring by President Obama at the White House, and being bestowed the prestigious American Geophysical Union, AGU, Excellence in Geophysical Education Award, the AGU Ambassador Award, and being recognized as an AGU Fellow. Dr. Johnson has also been profiled in Wikipedia, several STEM textbooks, and various other publications. She has served as an invited speaker in Cambodia, Brazil, Spain, China, Mexico, in several U.S. government agencies, universities, and international conferences and K-12 organizations. In March 2018, Dr. Johnson was recognized by All American Speakers Bureau as being one of 16 top women of color in STEM. And in February 2018, Essence magazine recognized Dr. Johnson as one of STEM's new guard in an article highlighting 15 women who are paving the way and paying it forward. In 2016, Black Enterprise magazine described her as one of 10 Black women changing the world via science and technology, and Fox News Channel's International Fox and Friends show featured her during its 2016 Black History Month series. All right.
Right. Man, she has like all of our aspirations in like one pinky. Right. Incredible. Well, once again, Dr. Johnson. Say that again.
I hadn't heard that read out loud. Usually people take pieces, so I appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. I want to get it all in.
Absolutely. Yes, we want to make sure that our audience knows what they're getting into and just, more about you before you shed some more light on those things. So let's go from the beginning on to now. You mentioned Jacque Cousteau and you being influenced by marine biology, someone in marine biology. What was the initial introduction to science, and what about science made you say, okay, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life?
So for me, it was watching TV, National Geographic magazine. So, giving my age, I just turned 48. So I was a kid of the 70s, born in 1970. So that was before cable, before all that stuff that you guys are used to that we take for granted now. TV went off, real off, it wasn't anything. And so at that point, I watched a lot of PBS. And so Jacque Cousteau would come on every Saturday. I try to be there because there's no way to you record it or catch it later. You just have to catch it live. And that's what really inspired me. I grew up in Dallas, inner city, not near ocean. My parents, started getting magazines from, National Geographic magazines. We went to Dallas Fair Park, which was as close as I could get. They had an aquarium. So that was free at times. Now museums are really not free, but we went in there and I started to learn all the different exhibits to the point that I was allowed by the time year after, when I got to high school, of being the first intern that they had. So my parents supported me. Nobody was involved in the ocean. Nobody knew about the ocean. Had very strong African-American teachers in elementary school that said, you want to do it, you can do it, learn about it and help it happen, and we'll help you. And so just with that family support, community support, then I believed I could, and that's what I pursued.
So Jacque Cousteau was definitely a legend in the world of STEM, especially marine biology. What was it about him and the way he presented himself, especially the science that he was involved in? What was it about it that made you say, okay, this is fascinating? It's definitely oceanography, definitely marine biology. Like, what was it about his presentation?
Back then, I was watching him give me a glimpse of the world. So every week I saw him, he was in different areas. So it could be around New Zealand, or it could be Hawaii. It could be anywhere in the ocean. And so I saw not only him time, but showing me things below. So it's opening up my eyes to that. But seeing people from all over the world interacting together and working with that as teams. And so not only was he outside having fun, going different places, exploring things out and under the water, but he was giving me not only that glimpse, but he was also showing me how that we could work with people around the world. And so for me, that was like the perfect job for me. I said, this is what I want to do. I want to be like Jacque Cousteau. I want to travel the world. I want to go under the sea. I want to work with all different kinds of people and then share what I find with others. So that's what really inspired me.
Awesome. Jabril?
Yes. Thank you so much. You highlighted really being really a world traveler and being able to affect people, communities, individuals that not only are trying to do things themselves, but are interested in what you're interested in and being able to feed off one another. I guess how really, when you talk about, I guess, traveling the world, why is that such a important thing to do for anyone, whether it be they're in STEM or in the sciences, or just as an individual trying to relate from themselves to their surroundings?
So, I've met people, and I'm from Dallas, who lived in Dallas all their life, never left Dallas, right? And that's fine for some. But then their point of view is often restricted to people from that area. And so for us to really learn, to be able to develop, to move forward, for me, it was always a curiosity of encouraging the exploration of not only different things, but different places. And again, even as a child, I had a map. And one place I've been a lot of places in the world. Still haven't made to Madagascar, and that was the little piece sitting off the coast of Africa that looked like a piece of puzzle that you just push back together. And so, from as a young girl, then I was looking to see where I could go. I know my home. My home was Dallas. My home was Texas. My family was there. But I always wanted to explore, encourage others. And so, even as my children, we all have passports. So those names of places you listed, it's not been only me traveling, but many times I've taken them with me. So they understand that there's a global society, there are different things, different cultures. And so that's something that we need to embrace because we can't stay within our own boundaries.
Mm. So on that topic of, boundaries, I guess pushing boundaries, obviously we read that you're very successful. But a lot of times when you read of successful people, you hear them talk, or you just know of them, you don't know about the journey before them, what got them to the accolades, what got them to, the magazines, or just the awards, or being able to work with certain individuals. Are there certain success principles, or just like creeds, principles, morals you live by, values that you have that have helped to spur you forward, and that you return back to when you maybe hit a hard place, or kind of get stumped from time to time?
Yeah, there are a couple. So one, I'll go back to when I was a young girl. My mother was involved in a community organization of African American women, and their slogan was "Lift as we climb." And so throughout my life, it's been not only move forward, but help someone else come up to where you are. So continue to lift while you climb. And so that's when you look at a lot of different organizations and activities I've been involved with, that's where that stems from. Because it's every door that I open, every spot that I go through, then the idea is that someone else can go through that door easy. And so, you talked about the oceanography background. And I told a group of people that I was with on Sunday, doing an engagement, that the last time I had a person that was an African American in a classroom with me was when I was in high school. And so then the next 8 years of my life, I was the only one. And so those things can be hard. And so when I'm talking with the next generation, McNair scholars or others, things is that it will be hard. But if you go ahead and do it now, it makes it easier for someone behind. And then I pay homage to like my grandmother, that she didn't have the opportunity to go off to school. She cleaned houses, she cleaned buildings. And so when I was standing in the White House getting that award, I was there not for myself, only myself, but my grandmother and the extended family. So it's our responsibility. And I was smiling earlier because I was just on Twitter, and a young lady, I did a presentation at the McNair's conference at Florida International recently. And I saw that she grasped something that I said was, you got to do the work. Because the idea is we have goals and we can be dreamers or achievers. And the idea is the difference between that is achievers do the work. But you have to do the work and remain committed to that. And when things get hard, one other quote was, if you fall down 8 times, you get up 9, right? You always get back up. We always do the work. And it's one, and I go into different kind of music. We don't stop. We don't quit. We just.
Tariq?
Yeah, well, before we go any a little further, there's 2 things really I want to remind everyone to. If you have any questions, go ahead and text 770-695-7912. Once again, that's 770-695-7912. Also, you are trained as an oceanographer. You have a PhD in oceanography. What is that? And what is marine biology? What are those? And what what sorts of things do those types of sciences entail?
Okay. So my PhD is oceanography. My undergrad is marine science. Within the oceanography area, there's 4 basic disciplines. So biological, geological, physical, and chemical. So I'm more of a biogeochemist. I blend 3 out of those 4. And so what you look at for me is looking at man's impact to the environment. So you have people who we call it being blue water oceanographers, go out way into the ocean. I've done that, but what for me was interesting and intriguing was how was man impacting our environment. So pollutants coming down rivers and streams from runoffs and those kind of things, seeing that effect. Because my family, we had some people who were fishermen, right? And so you fish not by just because you want to, but you need to put some food on the table at that point. And so if you're fishing in a polluted area, then you're doing that uptake to your body, to your family. And so what I found interesting, all since 3rd grade, I wanted to do it, but then I also wanted to help make an impact. I wanted to help my community. And so for me, looking at man's impact was that natural one. So I could see what's happening to the water, what's happening to the environment, what's happening to the crawfish, what's happening to the lobster, what's happening to catfish. That's a big thing for us. Is that, do you want to eat catfish from that place, or do you want to have the unknown? Those kind of questions is what drives my science.
Mm. Mm. Now, you mentioned that from college on to the rest of your education, that you were the only Black person in your classes. And the last time that you had another Black person with you in your classes was high school.
Yes.
From the time you graduated high school on to the time you finished your PhD, what were some of the reasons you thought or you think that there was such a low presence of Black people in your classroom, especially for what you're studying?
And this is something, and I've been to professional societies from my organization, talk with the presidents about it. In general, geoscience fields, we do a poor job in selling the career options. So if somebody says, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, I want to go to school for that, you get that. You know what kind of jobs on the other end. You say, I want to be an oceanographer. You start scratching their head. Like, what are you going to do with that, right? And so then you have to start to educate them. It's not only oil industry, but working with, National Oceanic Atmospheric Association, right? So then you can see what's there, the hurricanes coming in, you can see those kind of things. But we've done a poor job in selling the career options. So my degree is oceanography. I run nonprofits. I'm a superintendent at this point. There are skill sets that I was able to gather while I was in that education process that helped me be who I am right now. And so find out where the spills are, EPA kind of careers, those type of careers. But the reality of it is, especially back then, and I told you I was interested since 3rd grade. The first time I even knew of someone who's African American that was an oceanographer was by the time I was in high school. And that person was Ernest Everett Just, who was the advisor for Omega Psi Phi when they were founded. And so this was a man who I could look at who did phenomenal work, within trying times. He had some issues because of his race in doing science in the country. So he would go to Germany and do work. But when he came back here and did the work, that was great. But at the same time, I've been studying it since 3rd grade. I was in high school. And by the time I found out about him, he was dead. So my only role model was someone that I couldn't connect with, someone that lived years before and who struggled. And so with that, I was still committed to doing what I wanted to do, knowing that there would be few of us. Because of that, when you looked at the awards from President Obama and those things, that I made a decision that I would give back. I would make it easier. And so, there are some people within my network that, came a little bit before me. One of them is Ambrose Juro, who's been a mentor to me, and he's now retired. And so when I'm working, where we're having our deep discussions, I'm able to point to Ambrose because he still comes. and say, Ambrose is the person who picked the lock on the door and he opened it for us, put his foot in a little bit so we can get in. People in my generation, you know, Brandon Jones, who's at NSF, and others, and like myself, we've opened the door and we have our foot in and we're opening it. And so at some point, we want the people coming behind us to take the hinges off the door so the door can't be closed again, but to continue to go. And so that's where we are in the field. We're spreading. It's more months coming, but it takes time.
I like that. Take the hinges off the door. Jabril, you getting that?
Yep.
That's awesome. Cool, cool. Now, your role as a superintendent, have you been able to use that position to increase the drive or the motivation for young people to go into STEM?
We have. So the school is a STEAM school, and we have arts as well as STEM. And one of the things that we did 2 years ago, not of spring of 2018, but spring of 2017, we took a group of 5th through 8th graders down to Savannah State. And so I'd been a faculty member there, and it was wonderful not only to see them seeing that environment, but they went on a field trip. So they got on the boats, they did the aquatic science and everything else. And then to have them come back and say, when I grow up, I want to be a marine scientist. At that point, I was like, my work is done. I'm good, you know, because you see that generation saying, this is a field that I can do, and this is what I want to do. So those are the kind of moments that you say, okay, it's worth it, because you can see the spark in people's eyes come on. You can see them get excited about one thing that they didn't know exist. And so that's what, at this point, my role, others achieve their dreams.
Cool, cool. Jay?
Wow. You've mentioned a lot about, a few times on networking, you know, really the concept of, you know, working with others, you know, seeing yourself in the picture. How important is it for us, particularly as Black people? We see a lot of the networking concept of the family or collectivism in other ethnicities, other cultures, whether it be people in other countries or just right here in the Americas. How important is it for us to pull our resources, particularly in STEM and STEM-related activities or endeavors, to be able to push our agenda forward and be able to ensure a rise in the participation and the success in these endeavors for our people?
So it's important in their avenues that which can be done. And I talked about sometimes it's done by just determination, and sometimes it's done by the opportunities being presented. For instance, I was on National Academy's Gulf Research Board. And with that, they had listening groups. Well, this was happening right after the BP oil spill. So you had people in the coastal zones that were being impacted, and the National Academies wanted to hear from them to hear what was the needs. So the thing is, we had these listening tours where we went to the coastal states to hear from people. The people that I wanted to be there didn't come. So I could hear from people that didn't look like me. But the people who are also impacted by living on the water, being there, being the fishermen, they didn't take advantage of that opportunity. So at that point, National Academies was hearing or open to hear, and we didn't show up. And so for that, when you're looking at the opportunities, you have to be ready, set, go. Because if you can't get at the table, hear your voice actually be heard, then when the meal is done, you might not want to eat that. But we need for you to be at the table while it's getting stirred up to figure out what it's going to look like. And so that's one of the things for me is that the students that I mentor and I work with saying you're always ready. You're never off. You're always on. Because when that opportunity presents itself, you got to be ready to take it.
That's right. You know, this is a very interesting show because first off, when it comes to young people in STEM, you know, I find it, just from my experience, I find it the most useful tool to use to get young people into productive fields. I think STEM is the most productive area for young people to get into, period. So what were some of the the challenges that you face dealing with young people who you want to be in STEM. Did you have any young people who are enrolled in the school now that at first did not like STEM? Did you have to kind of mold them into, or grow them into?
So there are some there, and the school right now is up to 8th grade. Mm-hmm. And at that point, some young ladies and some young men, they want to play sports, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so the first things that we had to do was figure out how that sports team is going, because here I would go there, but I want to play basketball. And so we had and say, okay, now that you're here, and I actually started a charter school in Texas, and it's dealing with sports science, and the athletic part of it is saying there's a plan A and a plan A. Now that you're here, we know you want to be a basketball player. We know you want to be a football player, but let's come up with your other plan A. And did you know about this person who's not only a football player, but he's a doctor? Let's come up with a plan A. Another one, and then Leland Melvin, who's been a NASA astronaut. He played football. He's an electrical engineer. He's worked at NASA. He's African-American male. And so, okay, why can't you be like Leland? Be an electrical engineer, go up in space, do those things. And so when you show them the role models that have been able to achieve what they're interested in, they can relate and connect. So if I can hear what somebody's really interested in, and then have them open up their eyes a little bit more for other opportunities, then that's the way we've been able to get people to embrace the field, because it can take you places. That can take us, and because of that, it's for us.
Have some of the students in Sirius Academy made the decision as to what area of science they want to go into?
So we have some robotics teams. We have some that are doing some really cool work. We had our and with that production, lighting. They're interested in. There's the coding. Civil Air Patrol also to be the aerospace part of it. And so the idea of these young people who, I'm going to be a Civil Air Patrol cadet. What does that do? So that provides leadership opportunities. You find out about aerodynamics. You find out about how to work together as teams, but you also get to learn how to be a pilot, right? And so when you're doing all of that in middle school, then you're not only shaping yourselves for being interested in a particular field, but having the skill sets, having the opportunities, having the background. Like you read my resume, right? So if you read my bio, there's been some things happening. So if I'm looking at a 10th grader's resume for a scholarship opportunity, and I have some things, robotics, I have some things like hours, I participated this, I went to this, then those things make it the scholarship. So what I'm able to do, what we're able to do is say, help yourself. Let's do some opportunities that make you stand apart. And so those are things that we're committed to do at the early level, which is why I left the university level, because I'm seeing that our students are capable, but hadn't had the opportunities. And so to see opportunities at a university level that we aren't aligned for, to say, okay, now it's time to get the next generation ready. They can go and be successful.
Beautiful. Really, you had anything you wanted to add to that?
I kind of just lost. Okay, no, I got it. Okay. So with us here at Richmond Scientific, being present for some time, trying to make a name for ourselves, our major goal is to really bring research and development, manufacturing, and those core producing sciences to the inner cities, underrepresented groups, particularly our people, but also other people who may not be able to see their ideas come from concept to fruition. You have a lot of people who walk around having little ideas and see on television, dang, that person was able to do it and now is getting paid off of it, or was able to do something that has a lasting effect on society. And that's something that we're trying to move towards really in the, products and services sector. So I guess from you, someone who's not only accomplished, but someone who's accomplished in the way of trying to make a difference, trying to inspire others to kind of reach their potential. What are some advice, some things you would encourage us, whether it's to read, to kind of review for ourselves, or just kind of look into with regard to progressing forward?
So one of the things for me, when you talk about my career of being a young girl and saying this is what I want to do, so it gets hard, but I stayed with this is what I want to do. And you keep saying what you want to do. And this is what I tell students that I work with. You keep saying what you want to do until somebody listens. And when they finally listen to you, then listen to what they have to say. Because if you keep listening, you keep saying it, then someone will open the door. Someone will be able to point you in the direction. But you keep saying it, and if people are saying, oh, you can't do that, that's not for your ear to hear because you can do everything. It might take you a little while to get there, but don't give up. And one of the things that I've noticed about the generations after me is some of them, they might microwave generation or whatever, is that being committed to it. If it doesn't happen quickly, oh, I don't want it anymore. If it doesn't happen quickly, oh, never mind, it's not for me. So no, it doesn't happen quickly. But again, that's the difference between the dreamers and the achievers. So what I think you guys are doing is amazing, and you keep working at it. Just don't give up because this is your dream that you're going to achieve. If you stop at the dream, that's all it was.
Mm. If you stop at the dream, that's all it was.
It was. Mm. And that's so cool because go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I definitely appreciate that because sometimes, I think to myself, me personally, I could have been more proactive in this regard, or I can be more proactive now. Why am I being so sluggish? Is something getting to me? Is it what I really want? I know I want this, but what is it that gets in my way? And sometimes you really got to take a step back and be vocal, have those self affirmations, and like make sure you're putting out into the universe what it is you want, and then going to get it and getting those things that will help you along the way. And to hear someone who's not only accomplished, but you can tell there's a sense of love and respect and true concern for your well-being coming from that person, it helps. A lot of times, people can be kind of malicious with things or kind of just say things for the sake of saying them. But I definitely appreciate that, and we're starting to move forward and continue to keep our fire burning underneath us.
Absolutely. And I just want to speak on the concept of an idea. We're taught that ideas don't belong to us, that they are actually gifts from God, meant for us to work on and develop and grow them. And that if we don't do that, just kind of reiterating on what Dr. Johnson said, what you said, Brill, that if we do not work on these ideas, they will go to someone else. Mm-hmm. And we cannot get mad if they go to someone else and you see somebody 6 months later, the exact same idea down to the T.
Right.
And is now making money from it or getting some type of notoriety from it. So whatever idea that you have, try your best to make sure that you bring it into fruition. If you don't know, find out how, find a way. So this has been absolutely, this has been a great show so far. I have a question in regards to the mentor. You mentioned the mentors that you've had that were in a different time period from you. Mm-hmm. And I'm very keen on that. I love having mentors and people I look up to that I've never met, that I will never have a chance to meet, or someone that was here 200 or 150 years before me. I love that because it shows you the power of being able to teach somebody, being able to show somebody something without even ever stepping or gracing their presence. So opposite from that, who have been your mentors that you actually had contact with, grew to know, grew to love, and have been influential throughout your journey so far?
So one of them I mentioned was Ambrose Gerald, and he was at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, which is by some the premier institute for oceanography in the world. And he was there as being that young scientist with his family, but in a time where African Americans were very far and few between. But despite that, he was successful, and he there. And he's retired now. And I had the pleasure of going to Woods Hole this past summer to do a presentation, and it was speaking on diversity. And so they've actually named it after him, the Ambrose Gerald Lecture. And so I was there, and I had some other things going on, but I switched my whole schedule up, even including actually the surgery, so I could go there first. And so I said, all right, and I just took a moment to praise him and saying the title on this slide, I want you to see that I've talked about diversity and STEM and oceanography many, many places, but this is a special slide for me because this is the first time that I've been able to talk about it and give the public praise at this level that you guys have recognized finally, because he's done some phenomenal things and helped people that you don't even know that are of color in our field. But I'm glad that you've taken a moment to recognize him, because if it were not for him coming to talk to me the first time I did a public presentation at a professional side meeting and saying, this was good, now listen to me, I want you to do it this way next time, and being committed to walk this out with me, then I wouldn't be here today. So for that, and Ambrose was in the audience, I want to say thank you not only for inviting me, but recognize who you have with you. And so that was the presentation that I was able to give, to pay homage to him, because he's not only helped me, but many, many others. Of color, there have been few. And this is where I say I actually I collect mentors. So my mentors are for a moment, or someone that walk with me, and someone who actually have what you call a composite mentor. So for instance, when I was at Georgia Tech and I was looking at going to a different position, because I was a scientist there, but it's next time for a tenure track to become an assistant professor. Then the person who spoke into me was actually a white male, Ellery Engel. And so I was on the field, I was interviewing, I had 2 different offers. And so he helped me negotiate that. And he's like, well, you really don't want to go this place, you want this place, but you can ask for this. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's too much to ask for, because what we do as a people and generally is we learn how to stretch. We take what we have, stretch it to make it work. And so he was coming from the perspective is you only get an ask one time. So you ask for what you need plus, because this moment won't come again. And so I listened to him, I followed his advice, and I wound up getting the largest startup package that the University of South Florida College of Marine Science had ever gotten. So he was a mentor for me for a season. And so the thing is, you take the advice and you have to be willing to accept the advice from those who have gone the steps before, because when you do that, then you're benefiting and not having the same mistakes over. You don't have to learn those lessons. You can just take the wisdom from it.
Someone once told me never to reject wisdom, because if you reject it, but if someone knows more about something extensively, you really wouldn't have you don't have room to talk against that individual because you don't know.
Right.
So I've always been taught to never reject wisdom. So I think that's a very powerful thing that our audience can take home. Jabril?
My father is always talking to me about 2 things: being grateful and then having high character. And it's things I try to have stick with me, because I found that not only in my own life, when I see and I watch people, it's those 2 things, amongst other things, that not only breed success, but keep them down to earth, make them approachable, and really allow for them to seem and to be authentic to other people when they interact with them. What can you say in regard to those 2 principles of gratitude, as well as having high character and moral values, but really character, that have been integral to your journey through life, whether in oceanography or in your professional life or personal life, and how can you extend that to others?
So being grateful always. And, one of the things that I do is I mention my mentors. I mention my grandmother, because the idea is that every generation is supposed to build on the previous generation. And my grandmother put up with many more things than I had to put up with, right? She made it easier for me to be where I am. And what I speak into my children is everything that mommy has done, I want you to do more because that's the expectation. Let's not start back where it was in 1970 when I was born. You were born in a different time, and we want you to do more. And then about having kind of that character, you know, to me, one of the things that I know is I feel that have them do on you look at I want to be treated. I look at people and by I see the good in them. And then I hear where they are. And that's when you talked about different things. That's who I am. I see the good, I hear where they are, I hear where they want to go. And so I know one of my things, like you talked about ideas early and those being given, one of the responsibilities I have is to help people achieve where they want to go. So there's a level of humanity, there's a level of being attentive to what's being said, what's being spoken and not being spoken, and being able to say, let's figure out how we can make this work. So character, your word is your word. If you say you're going to do something, you do it. And when you continue to have consistent character, people begin to trust in you and open those doors, and people begin to count on you. They begin to come to you. One of the things is I have a person who is a phenomenal scientist in her own right, Dr. Melanie Okoro, and she was through my diversity program as a PhD student. Phenomenal African American female, fabulous career in NOAA, and now she and her husband have done their own company. She called me and she called me and she said, "Hey, I just wanted to hear your voice." And I said, "Why?" Better, and I just wanted to hear your voice because I know the resignation today to NOAA to do our
We there?
Dr. Johnson.
into what the path is that you're supposed to do. So congratulations, and I'm proud of you. So that's the character not only that she has.
Dr. Johnson, can you hear us? Dr. Johnson? Okay,
I'm
for
here. Can you
those who
hear
are
me?
watching, I'm gonna cut Dr. Johnson. If you can hear him, I'm gonna cut you out and then I'll bring you back in. There you go.
Yep.
All right, family. I'm gonna bring Dr. Johnson back in and hopefully it'll be working a lot better.
Yep. Please be patient, family. Thank you very much. That's a lot of heat. You know, you can always use a break for a little heat.
Right. So what do you think about Dr. Johnson so far, bro?
Awesome, man. Awesome. It's it's one thing to be accomplished, and that might be the longest, most in depth biography I've ever read. I was just going through it, and I'm like thinking about not that in the sense like these are things I want to do and just have somebody read it off, but like you talk about someone who's put in the time and has tried to be honest about their endeavors and give back as they are going on the way. That quote she talked about, lift as you while you climb. I think that's so big because a lot of us want to be successful for the sake of everyone seeing us and for the sake of being looked at as, oh, I want to be just like you, but never kind of lending the hand for someone to be like you. So I think from what she's saying and her ability to like let us in on that journey and also have the tight handle on the science that she has is awesome. And it's like it shows how you can really marry mentorship with STEM, with action, really all in one. You talk about affecting the speaking circuit and affecting academia and affecting children through mentorship and having interviews, like all these varying kind of aspects of things coming from that same STEM background. So
yeah, she's oh, here we go. Dr. Johnson, can you hear us?
Dr. Johnson, are you there?
There we go.
Okay.
We're sorry about that. We had some technical difficulties to get over.
No worries.
Thank you so much. Oh man, we like missed that whole last part.
Right. So you were speaking about a family member, I believe.
Oh, so were we talking about Melanie?
Yes.
Right.
So what I was saying is she was used to be a mentee in my diversity program. Finished her PhD, a career at NOAA, and at the point she and her husband really take off, and so she had this career in training to be a marine school. And is doing fabulous. And so
Dr. Johnson, can you hear us?
Character, and you won't go anywhere. No.
Hear us? Dr. Johnson, are you there? Okay, family, please excuse the technical difficulties once again.
Yeah.
Let me see. Dr. Johnson, can you hear us now? All right. Oh, okay. So she either her call dropped or she left. We'll go ahead and try to invite her again. Oh, there we go. All right. So we were talking about I'm sorry, what was the young lady's name again?
Melanie Okoro.
Melanie Okoro. Yeah.
Awesome. So she was actually a mentee, correct?
She was. She was. And she's in California, like I said, doing amazing things. But her character speaks for itself. And that's what you want to always have, is that character. And as I mentioned to Jarrell, I know people who are very talented, but without that character.
Right.
And so they might be successful for a season, but it won't last, because when that character or that character flaw really starts to kick in, then that teamwork that needs to happen, the accountability that needs to happen, the dedication, the responsibility that needs to happen is lacking. And so you can only go so far with just the talent.
Mm. And I think that speaks so much to, because like sometimes, you know, we as individuals that want to be successful, want to make an impact in what it is that we're interested in, we'll see people and it's like we'll know them in a certain light. They may not be the best of people, but we feel that they're getting ahead. And it's like, well, why is it that, you know, I'm trying to do all the right things, I'm trying to be a good person, but seem to not be able to reach the pace or get to the pace that they're at. And it's a number of, I think, things with that where I always think, what is the lesson that God is trying to send me through this? I'm always looking at it like, okay, you know, is there something in me that I need to be working on? Is there something I haven't done? Just because someone else, regardless if they're perceived to be a good person or not so good person, is achieving, that doesn't mean that I'm any less than. You know, because we're two different individuals. You know, you can't compare yourself to someone that's been in what you're endeavoring in for the past 10 years, and you're just starting off 1 to 2 years. You know what I'm saying? So it's always that kind of comparison. You know, I always was told comparisons in of themselves are not good. If you're going to compare to anything, it'd be the person that you were yesterday, and are you better than that person now? And then keep yourself moving like that, with like just comparing yourself to yourself. How can I continue to get better and be the best me that I can? So definitely big.
Yeah. And so recently I heard a message, and one of the things that really stuck with me is the idea of our path is set. God sets our path. We decide the pace. We determine the pace. And so for me, that really resonated. So the path is there. The path is there, but we need to decide, what is that pace going to look like? And if that pace is, I'm tired, so I'm not going to get up today, I'm not going to do anything, you know, I'll get back with it tomorrow. Does that pace take us to rock that path? Does it take us 2 years, or does it take us 20? Because the path is there, but it's what the decisions that we make that determines how long it takes us to get there.
That's right. Absolutely. And I just want to say, you know, I like being the listener. I don't particularly like asking a whole bunch of questions, but I want to ask this one because this, of course, is a science show. So I want to ask a science question. Jabril gets on me about this a lot. So my question is, what has been the most interesting thing that you've worked on or done in your field so far?
So when I was a professor at University of South Florida, I had an opportunity, and I mentioned that I had, you know, plenty startup money to do the kind of research I wanted to do. That I brought in grad students, several of whom were from Puerto Rico. And so I was like, okay, we're going to work on getting you this degree. What kind of research are we going to do? We have this kind of equipment who can look at radionuclides and look at what's in the sediment. We have this kind of material that can look at the classifying of the grain size and the types of clays there. What are we going to do? And so they were committed to giving back again. And so on their island of Puerto Rico, there were several different issues or several different potential study sites. One, there was a nuclear reactor prototype that was built on the best surfing beach on the island. And so that was built long ago, had deteriorated. They had some accidental shutdowns, meaning things were happening that they needed to shut down that reactor fast. So that became one of our study sites. And then you had the island of Vieques, where the U.S. Navy had an artillery shooting range, firing range, and some of which they used depleted uranium shell casings because that was material that could pierce armor really well, but it was radioactive.
Right.
And then the third spot they had was El Yunque, which was the rainforest on the island. And there was a period of time where, again, U.S. government, as they were looking at different kind of experiments, were injecting trees with radionuclides with the idea of, okay, if we have a enemy in a tropical environment and we can't see them, how fast can we get these trees to lose their leaves so we can see them clearly?
Mm.
And so on that island were 3 study sites that we were able to. So that became my field site with my grad students and my postdoc is we spent a lot of time on those 3 different locations. And while we were there, it was interesting to interact with people because there was one man at the surfing beach and he's, had to be in his 50s. And he came up and said, "What are you guys doing?" And said, "We're looking at, this particular site used to be a radioactive reactor here." He said, "Yeah, I was a little boy when that was there. Do you want me to show you where they used to keep the red drums and the blue drums and show you all these kind of things?" And so we started doing also citizen science. So we started talking to the people around to figure out what that background has been. And so then they start seeing, okay, they're from the majority of the students were from Puerto Rico and I was African American and we were trying to do things for our people. And so they start helping us do things and pointing out other stuff. So by far, that was my most interesting work. My other work was in the Russian Arctic, but I really enjoyed not only doing that work on the island of Puerto Rico, but having it mean so much to the community there as well.
As we're coming up to the conclusion of the show. Time now is almost 7:30, 7:28 now. Coming from a person that grew up in the 70s. You said you grew up in the 70s. You were born in the 60s.
1970s when I born.
Okay, 1970, right. So coming up in the 70s and the 80s, and just watching communities change over time or what have you. Can you safely say or come up with a definition of what science means to you? Like, say, for example, one of your children asked you, "Mom, what does science mean to you and why is it important? Why is it important?" What would you tell them?
So one of the things that science allows us to think through things, to figure out observe where we are and figure out what needs to happen. And so kind of using that logic behind, okay, this is where we are. We want to go here. We want to discover this. Why? Science is the why, right? Science is the how. How do we get it done? That's the engineering side of it. That's the applied science. Science is the why. And so asking those questions of why or how, those kind of things is what prepares us to be able to live in the next generation, to be able to succeed in what we're doing. So the idea now of the cell phones, right? Those are the things that, I saw them come on. I remember the bag phone that my dad had back in the day. What's happening next? The phones are on our watch, right? Because that's what we're doing. We're moving to the smart watches. Those kind of things are people asking how to make things. Sometimes they're physical science. There's occupational therapy. There's the things to make our world better. That's all based on the science. Even the production of food is based on the science now. So everything that you look at on what we do, we live, we breathe, whether it's the water, what we eat, anything, is the science behind it. Even in front of our computers, yes, there's some metal parts, but there are a lot of plastics too. That's the science.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. That's the most systemic breakdown that we've had in terms of that question. Would you say so, Jabril?
I actually when she got on the little material stuff, I got to get I stand by materials literally lies at the crossroads of like all the science, particularly engineering. Like everyone is working with something, some material from some, you know, element or some compound or like combination of elements from our Earth, and like being able to utilize it for several applications. So science is the why. You know, that's really deep, because you know you think of a lot of things, and I think if you can actually apply that to several things. You look at business. There's a science to business. There's a science to education. There's a science to teaching someone phonics. Like everything has a core systemic breakdown as to how it's to be done, but not only done at a high level. And I think that that's where, you know, those of us in STEM really can hone in maybe a little bit more, and like showing how the scientific mind can be applied to these other areas. And I think you definitely highlighted that well with not only your accomplishments, but I've just noticed how you've stayed, if I can say this, sciencey in all of what you've done. You know, whether it's speaking, being a mentor, now being a superintendent, you've always had the problem solving and critical thinking, you know, background, and shot from that aspect when you were presented with issues or with a new challenge and how to solve it. So I think that definitely speaks to you being a true scientist and wanting to be that and be successful in that for our generations. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And I actually had a question that I forgot to ask you, and it was in regards to something you had mentioned in regards to some of the research projects you were doing. You said that you had enough startup money to go ahead and get started and begin your research. Since we are an R&D company, what were some of the things that you had to do in terms of the startup money? Was it seed money from your own personal finances, or was it something that came from grants and sponsors?
So originally it was from university. And then after that, it was writing the proposals, understanding what the value was, the people that you're trying to get the money is from, what they're interested in. So being able to build on the equipment you need by meeting a question that they have. So one of the things is you can build the science based on the needs of the day. So if there's a problem to solve that's dealing with X, and if you get the equipment to solve that problem, that's great because you met their need. But at the end of the day, you now have the equipment that you can now solve in RQ as well. And so it's really listening to what the need is and then building it backwards. So then you can see, how can I meet this need, but how can I push my agenda as well?
Wonderful. So for anybody who's watching or listening right now, and you want to get schooled on how to do some research from scratch, this is the person to learn that from. Absolutely. So once again, absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Johnson, for joining us tonight on the most boring day of the week, which is a Tuesday. We are coming up on the Thanksgiving holiday in about 2 days. What are some of the things you want to leave the audience with who have, especially those who have big families and who have a whole bunch of potential scientists and engineers in their homes? What are some of the things you want to leave them with?
I guess focusing on two ways. One is just giving honor to where it's due, right? You have that extended family. You have that moment to say, mom, dad, cousin, uncle, grandmother, grandfather, I appreciate what you've done. And I wouldn't be here where I am if you hadn't done what you've done. And so I'm going to make you proud. So doing that. The second part of it is taking the time when there is that next generation in front of you that might say, my nickname is Sunny. Aunt Sunny, let me talk to you. Let me talk to you. Let me talk to you. And you might be tired or you might be full, but take time to listen to that next generation and ask them questions because they'll let you know what they're interested in. I want to be this. I want to do this. Okay, why? How? So what does that take? So get them to start thinking about it. Because when, as a third grader, and I said I wanted to be a marine scientist, you know, there was nobody in my world that could do that. But they start saying, okay, then what does that take? Let's figure it out. What we need to do. And so having that saying somebody is saying that versus girl, you don't know what you're talking about. You need to be this, you know? But having that encouragement and saying, let's figure this out together because you can do that. I
Right.
think those moments when you have that extended family first is to give honor, to pay that respect, to acknowledge what has done. And the second, because you're in the middle of that, is to encourage that other younger generation and saying, okay, let's talk about it. What's on your mind? What are you interested in? When you can take those moments during the extended family gatherings, then those to me are just as important, more so than the turkey and dressing.
Mm.
That's right. Absolutely. I completely agree. Jabril, is there anything you want to top it off with?
You know what? We gotta do it, bro. This has been another cracking open of the STEM Files. We are here with our wonderful, wonderful, wonderful guest, Dr. Ashanti Johnson. She's like giving us so much. And again, I keep saying it, but it really come from a humble, standpoint. Whereas though, this is what I love to do, and applying, her STEM background, her love of STEM to really have a lasting impact on future generations going forward. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation to come on our show. We look forward to hopefully working from you, learning from you in the future with what we want to do, and also just with anything that you have coming up. That being said, is there anything in terms of contact information you would be willing to give for people to try to ask questions or get to know your research or something about the Cirrus School or anything?
Sure, they're able to contact me via my email is the easiest way. And so that's dr period Ashanti Johnson at gmail.com. So dr like doctor period ASHANTI Johnson at gmail.com.
All right. Well, we've been well fed, family.
Yes.
For the as you said, I want us all to definitely think about what's been said and continue to watch, like and share and listen. We do this because we love it. We're not any particularly illustrious or renowned people, but we realize the need and we're trying to fill it. There's a lot of us in the Black community and underrepresented groups that are doing great work in STEM, and we continue to try to highlight the best and brightest that we have. And that's what we did today. So with that, thank y'all so much for listening. Tariq, is there anything else you want to add?
Yes. Thank you. Once again, I want to say again, thank you so much, Dr. Johnson, for joining us. We would love to have you back on the show. For those who are watching, OMS, Original Man Scientific, is not a YouTube channel. This is just a feature of Original Man Scientific. We are a research and development company. We focus on bringing your idea to life, your scientific idea, more specifically, and building it scientifically to the point where it can be used in real-world applications. So if you want to know more about OMS, just visit us at omansci.com. Once again, it's omansci.com. Our Instagram is that same handle, but just an underscore after it. Twitter, same handle, underscore. I'm not going to close the show out. I'm going to let my brother do it. Our next guest is the chief communications officer for a Black-owned wireless company called Quality Wireless. Please stay tuned for the date. It'll be sometime next week, God willing. But definitely be sure to tune in or stay abreast of our notifications on when that episode will take place. But once again, thank you again for joining us tonight, Jabril.
All right, family. You heard it here first. Giving it to you hard and fast in terms of the STEM. Every week, you try to be as consistent as possible. Again, this is OMS Presents the STEM Files on OMS TV. We're your co-hosts, Tariq Cardiac, Tariq Muhammad, and brilliant engineer, Jabril Muhammad. Thank you so much again, Dr. Ashanti. We look forward to having you in the future. And with that, family, y'all have a good night or good morning, wherever you're watching this from. And thank you so much again.
Peace. Thank
All right.
you.
Peace and blessings. No problem. Thank you.
Okay.